So I'm Tamer Mohamed. I'm CEO of Aspect Biosystems. I'm very happy to be here. Great to hear all of the stories that you've all heard today. You're going to see a lot of common themes, I think, by the end of the day. I was told I have 5 minutes to talk about the lessons that I've learned, and I could probably go on for days talking about the lessons I've learned in the past 3 years and the mistakes I've made. And so I've tried to kind of summarize some key ideas and lessons that I've learned, but I'm happy to kind of share offline some of the war stories and the juicy kind of lessons that I've learned over the past kind of few years. So very briefly here, let me just see here why this clicker. Let me just see why this video is not working. All right. Oh, no, it's okay. Just give me. There we go. So very quickly, just a quick overview about Aspect Biosystems to give you some context. So what we do is we 3D print human tissue. And so we're commercializing our printing technology that allows us to create tissue for transplantation and also drug testing. So how do we do this? We take the building blocks that make up the tissues inside of our body. We've labeled them here different colors, but these would typically represent different cell types, growth factors, extracellular matrix content, the different ingredients that make up the tissues inside of our body. These tissues are layered quickly in a layer-by-layer process to reconstruct tissue structures that mimic the natural arrangement of cells inside of our body. These structures actually contain living cells, and so after these structures are printed, they have to be put in physiological environments so that the cells within these structures begin to talk and communicate. So you can actually see each one of these green dots is a single cell. Over time, they form these interconnected networks, and you could actually see an example of one of our airway muscle tissues actually contracting and relaxing in response to therapeutically relevant agents like histamine. So our vision at Aspect Biosystems is ultimately to enable the production of human tissues on demand, and we think we could really change the world and change how we practice medicine with this. So now let me go back to my presentation here. All right. This is my first time using Google Slides. I usually use PowerPoint.
Sorry. On the back. You good?
All right. Great. So you'll see that we have used some of the same Google images with the next slide here. So why not Canadian dollars? Because Americans worth more, unfortunately. We'll change that one day, but not today, one step at a time. And so really what a lot of people think of when starting companies is it kind of looks like this. And unfortunately, that is far from reality. It's not that easy, and money doesn't start kind of piling in from day zero. It's actually quite the opposite. Starting a company is extremely, extremely difficult. And I couldn't find a better quote than by Elon. And really starting a company is like looking at death or abyss every single day and having to chew glass and really keep on going while you know that you're ultimately staring at significant degrees of uncertainty and ultimately potential failure. You have to keep on going and really get through those tough moments. And so why would somebody do this? Humans aren't really designed to do this. Humans have something called common sense, and we like to choose the path of least resistance. And so I really believe that to go down that path where you're chewing glass and looking into the abyss, you really have to be a bit crazy. And you have to think the impossible. And it's only if you have that mindset that you could convince yourself convince your human tendency that don't choose the path of least resistance, choose this tough path, because ultimately you have that passion and you have that vision that ultimately you'll get to a point where everything starts to make sense. And so how do you get through these challenging times? It all starts with an amazing co-founding team. And several of the people mentioned the importance of this. And for me, it all starts with this. And so I was very fortunate to start the company with 4 amazing co-founders. They're still the backbone of our company. And we really complement each other really well. And so it all starts with trust, people who could work closely with each other, people who complement your individual weakness, and people who are going to really go the distance along with you. And so I could stand here today and tell you with significant certainty that the company would have never gotten to where it's at now if it was just myself, or even 2 or even 3. It had to be these 4 co-founders. We were fortunate because we were actually working together for several years before we started the company. So we were researchers working at UBC for 3 years before, and so we knew each other. We had a significant degree of respect for each other, and we decided to start the company together. And we're still all involved in the company. So I can't stress this point enough. Start with a really good team that you want to work with for the long haul. The second thing that I learned firsthand is really the importance of having a deep amount of passion. Passion could trump skill any day. I actually have this picture up in my office because it reminds me every day that Muhammad Ali, who was young and really unknown at the time, was able to beat Sonny Liston and knock him out. And so that's the kind of mentality you have to have, is that deep passion, that vision that you could ultimately get through these challenges with your team will get you through that. You have to have the skill, but skill alone won't really get you far. You have to have that passion, because you're going to be attacked numerous amounts of time by multiple different stakeholders, investors, critics, skeptics, haters as well. and so you really have to have that passion, because that's what's going to get you through these challenging times. Oops, skipping ahead here. I think that wasn't supposed to be passion, that was supposed to be teamwork. So the other thing that I learned firsthand was the importance of team. And so it starts off with a great co-founding team, but you really can't stop there. And some companies have this danger of just having these founders that just, I don't know what's happening here, but yeah, it's just, okay. So founders is really the start, the core, but ultimately you have to learn really quickly, how do you surround yourselves with that next wave that's going to continuously innovate and move the company forward. And so team is really the backbone of any company. A company is nothing more than a collection of people trying to move in the same direction. And so really bringing on that next wave of people after your founders is absolutely critical, because that team is going to form your culture. Everybody likes to think that culture is just a bullet point of values, but really culture is your first 10 or 20 or 30 people that you bring on. And so really pick those people carefully and know that they're going to be the ones that are making the decision when you're 30,000 feet above, traveling all over the world. They're going to be making the key decisions on the ground that are going to make or break you. And so that's exactly what we've done over the past few years. This is a picture, our very first anniversary. That's a Dairy Queen cake with Aspect's logo on it. And so it was a moment that we continuously celebrate. Our anniversary is a special kind of gathering every year now. We bring the whole team, and we like to take pictures and kind of monitor our growth as a team. This was a couple of years ago, actually, at a Christmas party, and you could see that our team has grown. We're now more than 20 people. We're also hiring as well, and so it's important to sort of grow that team and grow that culture. And I'm proud to say that it's this team that is ultimately pushing our company forward and making those key decisions on the ground. Last, I think it stopped working here. Oh, there we go. So last. I'll leave with, I think, probably the best analogy I could come up with for a startup. Really, a startup is nothing more than a roller coaster ride. There's going to be a lot of ups and a lot of downs. I found that the trick is not to get too wound up in the lows and to really charge up and enjoy the highs when you're there, and to really enjoy the ride, because it really is rewarding. So that's all I have to share, and I'm happy answering any questions. Yeah.
Any questions over here? Show of hands. It's about to get awkward. Just kidding.
Thanks a lot. It was an amazing presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
Any challenges on the work-life balance during this time?
Yes, that is a good question. I think the reality is, at the early days, you're probably going to have to put in 100 hours a week, easily. And so it's very difficult to have a work-life balance. I think it's important. I'd love to be here and tell you that it's, but really, no. There's no work-life balance. I think you want to try to create those sort of voids in your life where you could spend time with the people who mean a lot to you, and it becomes quality over quantity. And so, for example, I used to play competitive soccer kind of growing up. That's something, unfortunately, I had to give up because it's something where I had to sync up my schedule with practices and weekend kind of games. And so I had to find an alternative. And so alternative cycling made a lot of sense to me because when I'm free, I could go out. And so you kind of have to think differently. You have to start thinking how I could do things around my schedule. Yeah, so I guess my answer to you is, yeah, your work-life balance is going to, I guess, change in a startup versus if you were having a 9-to-5 job. But usually people who are entrepreneurs and in a startup don't want a 9-to-5 job. Like no one in our company wants a 9-to-5 job. Yeah.
Mandy, 1 second.
There's one word that I would describe it, that it's lifestyle.
Yeah, that's a good word. Your lifestyle will change.
That is, like, being an entrepreneur is a lifestyle choice.
Yeah.
Any other questions on this side? No? Okay. A warm round of applause. Thank you so much.